Okay, so this is another one of my videos about preparing for a diploma exam in Biology 30. Some hints and some tricks on how to get your way through the exam. So first thing I look at in this question is there's a lot going on. I purposely haven't picked easy questions to go over in these videos. So this one's got a lot. The first thing I notice is the diagram. This is a life cycle question. Life cycle question means it's dealing with sexual reproduction, usually sexual reproduction. Could be asexual, but this one definitely is sexual reproduction. So let's take a look at what we've got here. Like I said, there's a lot going on. It says adult butterflies are diploid. So here are adults, they are diploid. I'm just going to go ahead and label that diploid right here. 2N is diploid. There's my adults. Sex chromosomes in adult female butterflies are W and Z chromosomes, whereas sex chromosomes in adult male butterflies are 2Z chromosomes. Now that's our first wrinkle in this, because this is not like human beings. In human beings, we are all familiar with the fact that males, for their sex chromosomes or gender determining chromosomes, they have an X chromosome and a Y chromosome, the 23rd pair. And for humans, females, well, what makes them females is 2 X chromosomes in that 23rd pair that determines their gender. That's not what we have here. We've got a different situation. Now, it's been kind enough to tell us about that it's W and Z chromosomes in the females. So in this situation with these butterflies, we've got W and Z. And in the males, we have 2 Z chromosomes, Z and Z. So what that tells me is that unlike human beings, in butterflies, it's not the sperm that determines the gender of the offspring, it's the ovum that determines the gender of the offspring. Because in an adult male, we can get the Y chromosome going off and making a sperm, or we can get the X chromosome going off and making the sperm, and depending on which sperm fertilizes the ovum, that determines the gender. The female can put only an X chromosome in the ovum, so if a Y sperm fertilizes an X ovum, we get an XY, and we got a boy. If an X sperm fertilizes an ovum, we get an XX zygote, and that creates a girl. That's not going to happen here. What's going to happen here with the butterflies is the male is going to make only Z. That's it. That's all a male can make. Z sperm or a Z sperm. Now, if a Z sperm fertilizes a W ovum, you've got ZW, and ZW in this case would be a female. If we have a Z sperm fertilizing a Z ovum, we have ZZ, and that would be male. So it's the opposite in human beings. You'll find some other species are like that. There's lizards and chickens and things where it's done a little differently than with human beings. All right, so there's that wrinkle. That's the first wrinkle here that makes this a tough question. Another one is, well, they've given us a life cycle, but they haven't told us what process X and process Y, structure 2, they haven't labeled any of that. So we're going to need to know that in order to answer our question, because our question down here is talking about a karyotype, yet another concept in this question. A karyotype of structure 1 in the diagram would have. Now, I'm not going to look at the answers yet. I'm not worried about the answers. What I'm worried about is what do they mean by a karyotype? Well, the karyotype is just the list of all the chromosomes that would be present in a cell. You're familiar with making a karyotype with human beings after perhaps a procedure like amniocentesis. So you can find out the genetic characteristics of a child before they're born. Technically, you could do a karyotype on any tissue sample from a human. It doesn't have to be before they're born. But you could also do it on a butterfly, or a cell from a butterfly for that matter. It's just a map of all the chromosomes that are possessed by that particular individual. Now, in this life cycle, I'm going to go ahead and figure out a few things here. First of all, I can see that we've got adult butterflies that are making structure 1 and this other structure looks suspiciously like a sperm cell, which would tell me that process X is almost for sure going to be meiosis, because sperm cells and egg cells, well, they're only N, they're haploid. The adult cells were 2N. Well, in order to go from 2N to N, you have to do meiosis. So process X is going to be meiosis, assuming that that is a sperm and that's an egg. Looks pretty good to me because they are fusing later, and that process of fusing is going to be fertilization. So it looks like we've got fertilization happening here. So fertilization is happening to create structure 2. Structure 2, that's got to be a fertilized egg or a zygote, it looks like to me. Now, that tells us that we have process Y, where this structure 2 is going to be made into a larva. So process Y is growth. Well, how do cells grow? They're going to grow through mitosis. So process Y is mitosis. Now, I'm going to go ahead and draw a line on this diagram. And this is what I do on every life cycle diagram. Whenever I see meiosis and fertilization, I just go ahead and draw a line between them. And the reason I draw a line between them is that divides up my life cycle into a haploid phase and a diploid phase. And that means anything on this side of the blue line is going to be diploid. Anything on the upper side of the blue line is going to be haploid. Structure 1 is clearly haploid, clearly on the end side of this diagram. So when we're asked about a karyotype of structure 1, it's only going to have one copy of each chromosome. So we can eliminate answers A and D. So we definitely have one copy. Now, we want one copy of each autosome. That means non-gender determining chromosome, or not a sex chromosome. And are we going to get a W or a Z, or are we going to get one copy of each autosome, a W chromosome, and a Z chromosome? Well, the female is WZ, which means she could contribute either a W or a Z, but she's not going to contribute both into the same gamete, not both into the same egg. So in this case, we can be pretty confident here that one copy of each autosome is going to be there because it's a haploid cell, and either that structure 1 is going to get a W or it's going to get a Z. Therefore, I'm going to take answer B.